Hello, everybody. This is Nathan Rosenberger doing my Week 7 Persuasive speech. If you watched my speech last week, the Week 6 informative speech, it was about how people live off of a limited income and more specifically, how people live off of $5 a day. This speech, I'm going to take those points that I had in the Week 6 speech and I'm going to turn it into a persuasive one about why you should try living off of $5 a day for an entire week just to try something new out. And you never know, you might learn a thing or two from it. The three main reasons that I said in my previous speech about why this would be beneficial is that it prompts people to pay more attention to their finances and take more financial responsibility. It makes you learn new skills like cooking and meal prepping and like understanding food labels and your nutrition and everything that goes into that and portion sizes. And then the third point that I made last time was that it makes you humbling or humbled. And when it makes you humbled about is that you realize that when you do this, that so many other people don't have the means to provide for themselves that most people do. And to live on a limited income like that is a hard thing to achieve. And it gave you a sense of the luxury that some people have that many people take granted for. So the two sources that I had last time, it was a YouTube video of a challenge my brother sent me, which originally put me onto this challenge. And it was titled Living Off $5 a Day by a guy named Brothers Green Eats on YouTube. And the second source I had was an article online about people that use food stamps that live off a limited income, and that was by a guy named Keith Lasky. Since that last speech, I found two new sources about this topic. One was by Onika Mays, and it was eating healthy on less than $5 a day. And the other article I found was one by a woman named Josie, who's a mother of three, and it's 7 ways to live off of $25 a week. And I learned some cool things in those articles. So after reading more about it and after the speech, I realized I wanted to try it for myself. So I went to the store and I spent $35 at the store and I bought, I'm on the list here, I bought chicken, peas, rice, beans, tomatoes and onions, cabbage, I bought apples, oatmeal, white bread, soy sauce, and peanut butter. And I was convinced that I was going to spread that out and make it last as long as I could. I was going to find recipes and meal prep and kind of learn a little bit more about that as well. So it was a little tough at first to kind of get into that groove. But once you start, it's actually very rewarding. And it's a lot easier than most people would think. Last time I talked about financial responsibility. And that was something that I certainly learned in the supermarket when I went. Looking at the difference between name brand and value brand items and the amount that you get with value brand in comparison to the amount you usually get with the name brand and value. It's just so different. Another thing was the nutritional value. It's all the same, essentially. A lot of the value brands, they use the same ingredients and you spend a lot less money on things that you're getting at the same fancier packaging. I also weighed a lot of my fruits and vegetables, like the apples I weighed when I bought them, the head of cabbage I weighed, the tomatoes and the onions, those were all weighed. And I was able to save a good amount of money because usually when I go, I put a lot of vegetables and stuff in my cart and the price just racks up because I don't think about that. So it was a good lesson that I'd like to pass on to everybody else because when you go and you do that, it's really informative and it helps you save a lot of money. For cooking wise, I definitely learned a lot of things. I tried some new recipes I never tried before. I will say that a lot of it was a little redundant, a lot of rice, a lot of chicken, a lot of just regular cooked and sauteed vegetables. But I was surprised at how creative I could get with those. And I was very satisfied with my meal prepping that came from those meals that were cooked. I had to do some research into meal prepping, which I urge all of you to do because it's a great money saver and it's a great way for you to plan out your meals and really watch your caloric intake, which is good for your nutrition, health-wise. It was hard at first because I didn't know exactly what I was doing. So I was putting too much of a portion size in each meal prepped Tupperware. But then once I got through the second day and I realized that I was running out of food, I toned it back and I realized that I wasn't as hungry the last few days of the challenge as I was when I started because my body started to get used to it. I was still working out in the gym and I was just trying to fight those cravings to eat more or go buy fast food. The third point that I had originally made was about being humble. I was certainly humbled by this challenge. When I started, I wasn't really sure as to how it would make me feel. By watching the videos and reading the sources that I mentioned earlier, you got a good feel of how other people felt. But until you actually try it and walk a week in someone else's shoes, it's hard to know how you'll react to that and how you'll think about yourself and your purchases and the way that you spend your money on a daily basis. And that certainly was the case for me. By doing that for a week, I saved over $50 on fast food expenses that I normally would have spent. I felt better about myself. I felt healthier. I realized that other people that don't have the same means that I do, that have to do this kind of thing, and they have to meal prep, or they want to even, and that's great. But those people have much more financial freedom. Even with a limited income, they have more spendable money than I usually do, and it's because of my food spending habits. So that was a big eye-opener for me. Also, I learned a lot of good things for people who are on a limited income. I read some stuff about people who use food stamps that grow gardens, people that have to go to food banks even, and those ways to get free food, where you're growing your own food or you're getting it at certain times from a food bank. Those are other ways that you can get it that I've read that people have to do. And it makes me humbled because I don't need to have a garden and I don't need to go to a food bank. So it made me appreciative of the money that I have and the way that I'm able to spend it. And another big point that I think I took away from this is that more people need help than we realize. And this $5 a week challenge, for people who actually need to do this to survive, they rely on things like growing their own food, or they rely on things like food banks. So it's really important to donate when you can to food banks, and not just on holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas, but throughout the year. Many people overpurchase, overspend, and they go to the grocery store and they buy canned food that sits in their shelves for months. And I'm a culprit of that. I do that all the time. And so I went ahead and I donated food to the food bank to be given out to other people, and I felt better about myself for doing that, as well as helping out other people. So I hope that through this speech I've persuaded some of y'all to maybe try and do some research into the sources I listed about why it's beneficial and kind of honestly fun to try and live off of a really limited income for a week. It shows you a lot about yourself in terms of spending and how you eat, where you eat, and when you eat. So it kind of covers all these bases that you don't really think about on a normal day-to-day basis, and I think it's very beneficial. Also, it was an eye-opener for donating food for people who are in need. So if you are inclined to do that, I urge you to do that as well. I hope this video was helpful in persuading you guys to try at least and do the challenge and live off of $5 a day for a week. And it's not for everybody. I will say it was a huge struggle for me the first couple days, especially being in a family and stuff. It was very hard. So if it's not for everybody, but if you do try it, and I hope you do, I think you'll be very impressed with the results at the end of the week. Thanks, guys.